Hi everyone, my name is Alyssa. I read, and today I am going to be reading the Once Upon a Broken Heart series by Stephanie Garber. So I have not read anything by Stephanie Garber before. I know she has another series called the Caraval series. It has a total of 3 books, but I haven't read her books before, and so I'm really excited to read this new series. It is currently a bestseller, or has been at least for a long while. So book 1 is Once Upon a Broken Heart, and then The Ballad of Never After is book 2. Book 3 is not out yet. It is called A Curse for True Love, and it comes out October 24th of 2023. So I'm only going to be reading the first 2 books, obviously. At some point, I would like to read book 3 to finish the trilogy. We're following Evangeline, and she is brokenhearted because her beloved is marrying someone else. So she's devastated and brokenhearted, and so she makes a deal with the Prince of Hearts for him to stop the wedding. In order for him to stop the wedding, she has to give him 3 kisses. So that is the synopsis for the beginning of book 1, and let's move on with this reading vlog. So I've been reading like crazy. I am halfway through Once Upon a Broken Heart. So this is very different than what I thought. I'm on page 213. This is just barely over 400 pages, so I'm a little bit more than halfway. And okay, so I think I thought maybe it was kind of like Alice in Wonderland-esque, and it's not. I think I just thought that because the love interest, or possible love interest, is still not, like, when you read YA romance, you know where it's going to end up going because it's a romance, but things haven't quite hinted at that quite like it has. Like, I know where it's going. I think we all do. So I'm just going to call him the love interest, but like things haven't quite progressed that way. But he is called the Prince of Hearts, so I think that's where I got that idea from. He's also named Jack, but this world is very different because it's kind of like a fairy tale world. Our main heroine, Evangelina, I think is her name, Evangeline, she lives in this town, and it's like her main city and then a northern city. It feels like a very fairy tale-esque world, and she's an orphan. Like, even her story setup is kind of like Cinderella. Like, her parents are both dead, and before her father died, he remarried because he wanted a woman to look out for Evangelina. She has a stepmother and a stepsister. Her stepsister seems to be a lot kinder than the traditional stepsister kind of storyline when it comes to Cinderella. Her stepmother is obviously questionable, but this starts off with her entering a church, and it's because she's decided to make a deal with the Prince of Hearts. So in this world, there are these immortals called fates, and they're kind of like a cross between like a Greek god and maybe a fairy, or a demigod or something like that. So they're immortal, and they have churches, like people worship or pray to them kind of thing. And I think they've not been around for a long time, but they are making a comeback, I guess you can say. And so she prays to the Prince of Hearts at his temple, and he's like there. He like shows up, and they strike a deal, and the deal is that in order for him to stop the wedding of her love, she has to give him 3 kisses, and it's not for him, it's like 3 people she has to kiss of his choosing at any point. So that's the thing. She is in love with Luke, and you know, I guess he made promises to her. It's kind of unclear, but like she is like desperately in love with him, and he was there for her after the death of her father, and she assumed that they were going to be together. And then her stepsister gets engaged like a couple weeks ago. They announced their engagement, and this like took her like for a loop. It came out of nowhere kind of thing, and she doesn't know what to make of it. She's always wanted to say something to her stepsister, but she never did. She never had the courage, and like Luke was like not around. She tried to like reach out to him, and he was like not responding kind of thing. And so the Prince of Hearts, or Jax, we'll call him Jack. It's like Jack or Jax, something like that. So he promises to stop the wedding. So she shows up the wedding, because it's like the same day, of course. They're turned to stone, and she's like, what did you do? It's like, why stop the wedding? And like she made sure he the promise was like not for him to kill anyone because she doesn't want to hurt anyone. And she's like, this is not what I promised, kind of thing. And so, and I guess they drank from a goblet that turned them to stone. And he said like the only way to stop it is if you drink this goblet. And so she does. She's like convinced herself that Luke will save her. Like, of course he loves her. Like, he will save her, kind of thing. So she turns herself to stone. And then 2 weeks later, she wakes up. I forget what his name is, but someone who works for the king or the empress or something revives her. And he's also a fate. I forget what his name was, but he revives her and she becomes kind of like a hero because she saved the wedding. And then her stepsister is known as the cursed bride because they rearranged the wedding. Like, they rescheduled it 2 weeks after she turned to stone. And then he gets mauled by a wolf or something. So like, it's a bit like strange and interesting, like weird things are happening. But Jack shows up to reclaim one of his kisses. That doesn't happen for a while. He's actually out of the picture. The empress, the new empress, I feel like I'm explaining this all wrong, but while she was frozen or in stone, the fates had returned and they created chaos and they were kicked out of the city to go to the north. So there's this north city where these stories or fables are kind of true, and it's a lot more like fairy tale-esque place. And the empress asks her to go to this ball. So Apollo, who is the prince, he's looking for a bride, and I guess this is the normal thing, is to host like this big ball and he has to dance with everyone and he has to pick a bride, kind of like Cinderella, right? And so the empress asks her to go in her place because she can't go. And so her and her stepsister decide to go, and the story kind of progresses from there. She meets up with Jack. Jack finds her and commissions her to do these kisses, and it's really clear that he has some other motive behind all this. I don't want to spoil too much, but I feel like that was kind of the setup. That was like the first 100 pages. I do like Evangelina. I want to say Evangelina. Her name's Evangeline. I do really like her. You sympathize with her. You feel really bad. Her parents told her like she's always kind of had like blind hope, and so you kind of wonder if Luke even really loved her all along, and you're questioning her perspective a little bit. Like, she's not like an unreliable narrator, but you're like you question the stepsister, like if her motives are pure or if she's kind of out to get Evangeline. And it's kind of interesting. It is a world with potions and curses and things like that. And you kind of just have to accept it. The world building like is slightly explained. You just have to go into it and just go with the flow, kind of thing. Jack is like, he's a very compelling character, obviously like attractive, and like she's really drawn to him, and they have really, you can tell like they have chemistry there, but she's questioning his motives, and he's obviously using her to get what he wants. He's manipulating her, using the kisses to get something, and she doesn't really know what it is, and you still don't know what it is. And it's interesting how the kisses work because it kind of puts people under the spell, because what he does is he drops some of his blood, which is like gold or something, and puts it on her lips, and then when she kisses someone, it kind of like entrances them and they're under kind of like a spell. And she really doesn't like it. It bothers her a lot, but he promises to like break the spell when she finishes doing what he wants her to do. And so she does feel really tied because like she made this promise, and it's kind of like, you got to do this or you'll die, kind of thing. Like, it's kind of silly. He's not like threatening her with a knife, but it made it seem like if she doesn't do the kiss, then maybe she'll die or something. Like, I don't know, because of his blood. I don't know. It's not really explained. I really like it. I like the world. Like, even in the North City, there's like, instead of squirrels, they have like mini dragons that fly everywhere. I just think that's very charming. It's very like charming and atmospheric. If you want like a fairy tale kind of world, like the ball is at the Grand Palace and things like that. And Apollo is a really fun character as well. And you do kind of feel for her, but you kind of think like, okay, like she's also not making like the best decisions as well. And I am curious to see where this is going. This almost feels like a 5-star, but at the same time, it's like, I don't know if it's like because it's YA, it's not quite there for me, but I'm having a really good time and it's a lot of fun. Like, I think it's more fun than anything, and I can't help but feel like they're like destined in some way to be together, because the myth behind Jack is that if he kisses anyone, they die. except for his one true love. And I can't help but think, like, obviously Evangeline is his true love, probably, but like, is it, he's immortal and she's not? And I can't help but was wondering if this is going to be a reincarnation kind of thing, like every time she's reborn they find each other again. I don't know if that's true or not. Maybe not, or maybe it's just a one-time thing. I don't know. I am intrigued by this. I think it's fun, and I'm gonna keep reading because I do like it. It's a lot of fun. It's just very different than what I thought it was gonna be. I don't know what I was thinking. Not a ton of action. It's a lot of like, she's working in her curiosity shop or bookstore, or she's traveling and she's going to these balls and dinners and things like that. That's kind of it. Like, it's not, there's no like sword fighting or anything. And there's going to be a little bit of scheming because Jack is up to something. And so that's kind of the vibe in a fairy tale setting. Okay, so it's much later. It's like 7:45 and I finally finished Once Upon a Broken Heart. And I really liked this. It was a lot of fun. There was definitely some twists and turns, and it kind of turned into a little bit of a mystery because Evangeline does get like framed for something that she didn't do, and like everything kind of gets messy, especially with like her having to kiss different people and the consequences of it. Like, there's magic in the kisses and, you know, kind of love potion-esque kind of stuff happening. She's feeling like she has to do what Jax wants. It's kind of weird. It's Jax, so it's like, call me Jax instead of Jack. It's kind of a little different. So sometimes I read sentences and I just get thrown off because it's Jax, and like the flow of it feels a little off. But anyways, she's aligned with someone that she doesn't agree with and forcing her to do things that she doesn't feel comfortable doing, and she feels like she's lying part of the time, specifically to her stepsister, and the reason why the wedding stopped kind of thing in the beginning of the book. And she feels guilty for lying to her stepsister and hiding this secret from her. But then the consequences of these kisses, only 2 kisses happen in this book, so obviously something's going to happen in book 2. But the thing that's interesting is like, she, at the end of this book, she's realizing that obviously throughout this story, like, her and Jax get closer, and maybe she feels sympathetic to him and his story, and just during some adventures like grow closer. But at the end there's something that happens that makes her question everything, even his motives, even it's like even questioning like the way he's acting. Like, even though he may seem like he's bonding with her or they're getting closer, almost becoming friends, she's even questioning like whether that is his motive in order for her to do what he wants. Because like, overall, like, he has a final motive. There's something kind of like part of the history of this city. I don't know if it's a spoiler or not. Like, he wants something. Like, she's part of I don't know if it's really spoiler. She's part of a prophecy, and she needs her in order to fulfill the prophecy. And so he's been kind of manipulating her. But there's always this like underlying question of, is she his true love? You know, like, does he have feelings for her, or is he just manipulating her? It's really messy, and I kind of like it. I think it's a lot of fun. It becomes a bit of a mess, but in like a good way. So I really liked this. I had a lot of fun. I think for sure like 4.5, which is basically a 5 stars. So I would like rate this 5 stars on Goodreads. Is it a full 5 stars? I'm not 100% sure. Like, there's nothing wrong with it. Like, it's actually really good and a lot of fun, and there were some good moments. There's like vampires in here, and I wasn't sure how I felt about it, honestly. I kind of wish like the vampire stuff wasn't there. It just felt out of place. It just didn't quite make sense to me, like, why there's vampires in this like fantasy fairy tale world. But maybe that's not fair because, I don't know, I guess I'm just so used to like vampires being in like an urban fantasy setting or a paranormal setting, and this is different. Like, the author can do whatever they want, right? So it just felt odd to me, I guess. Not what I was expecting. And yeah, I had a lot of fun. So I guess like I'm gonna say 4.5, but ultimately it's basically a 5 star. And I am gonna jump right into it right away. I don't know if I'm gonna read it today, start tonight, but it is The Ballad of Never After, and I liked the way it ended. There was a bit of like a surprise like at the end of book 1, and, you know, kind of like got me excited, and it kind of put them back where she can't trust him. You know, it kind of like built up the relationship a little bit where maybe they can trust each other, but now she's back to like not quite trusting him. And so I did find that interesting. I will say, moving forward, talking about this book, I will try to keep this book spoiler free, but I probably will spoil things for book 1. So if you don't want spoilers for book 1, maybe cut out the video now. But this book specifically, spoiler free. Book 1, probably some minor spoilers. Okay, so it's time to talk. So I've been reading this on and off over the weekend. So I am officially halfway through this book. So let's talk about it. It's book 2. So I need to warn you that spoilers will happen for book 1. I'll try to remain spoiler free, but I'm going to talk about like the setup of this book specifically. So I'm going to talk spoilers, especially like end of book 1, because I kind of need to. So this is your warning to click away if you don't want to be spoiled. So at the end of book 1, Evangeline learned who cast a spell, not a spell. She was cursed, she was poisoned, and Jack helped her to recover and get better. And when she comes back to the castle, that she learns who actually did it. And they learned that Tiberius poisoned Apollo. So they first think that he killed Apollo because everyone thought he was dead. But then they later find out that Apollo is actually alive. And so Tiberius didn't actually kill his brother. He was attempting to kill Evangeline. So when Evangeline learned that Apollo is actually alive, so Apollo is like in a forever slumber. His heartbeat's moving really slowly, so he's in like eternal slumber and will stay young forever until someone breaks this curse. And this curse was set by Jax. So when Evangelina kissed Apollo, she passed on to this curse from Jax. So Jax keeps on manipulating her, and she keeps on letting him manipulate him. And so that was the end. And she kind of realized that Jax did this in order to control her, because she wouldn't want Apollo to stay in eternal slumber. So it's like used as leverage in order for her to do what Jax wants. So that's where it ends in book 1. In book 2, it like quickly picks up right where we left off, and there's a threat of a new heir coming. And so she's doing her best to try and find a cure for Apollo without using Jack's help. She does not want to be manipulated by him. She's kind of like done with him. But Jax keeps coming back into her life. And so basically he wants her to open this arch. And we learn more about the arch as we keep reading. So this Valor Arch, I think that was called. And like no one knows if it's good things or bad things in this arch. If you open it. But it was closed by the great families, and they have these stones that you need to place into the arch in order to open it, and she is the only key. And you learn, I don't think it's a spoiler because you kind of learn this early on, that like there's been previous people who have worked on this arch. So she's not the only key that's ever come about. And you learn that Jax and Chaos are actually working together. And my assumption, I don't actually know if this is true or not, but when the arch is open, or this specific arch, I have a feeling that all curses are gonna get broken because he convinces Evangeline that if she opens the arch, Apollo will wake up, kind of thing. I'm wondering if all the fates will have their curses lifted if the arch is opened. That's my other prediction. I kind of wonder if Jax was cursed a long time ago to have his abilities to live forever, but also like to continually get heartbroken. That's just another prediction. I don't actually know. Evangeline refuses to work with him, and he keeps kind of like hunting her down, and eventually she gets to the point where like she's just forced to work for him, and she just kind of agrees to do it. Himself and Chaos like put her in this library, and she's like told to like search for these stones. Like that's when we learn about it. Oh, and the other thing is, so Apollo, he was in this eternal slumber, but someone put another curse on him, and so now, and not just one curse but 2 curses. So he has this mirror curse on him where if he gets hurt, she also gets hurt. So if he gets like stabbed in the arm, she starts bleeding out of her arm. So they have this mirror curse, so neither of them can get hurt, otherwise she will like they would both die kind of thing. But the other thing too is he has this archer curse on him where he has to hunt her down. So they keep repeating this one fairy tale about the fox and the archer, and the fairy tale is basically like this man is cursed to hunt down his love, who's this girl who turns into a fox. And it's one of Evangelina's favorite like fairy tales, and so Apollo has been cursed this way. Yeah, okay, so my feelings so far, I am really enjoying it still. Like I really like this world. I like all the fairy tale incorporations. I'm finding, do you call it politics? I don't know, like this mystery of this arch and like how the former families are involved, this kind of like uncovering this mystery, right? So I do enjoy that, and I still like the romance, but like the dynamic in this book isn't as good, and it's because in book one it's hate to love. Okay, I love hate to love, it's one of my favorites, but this is very much like hate, 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 hate. In book one, Evangeline, she decides to make a deal with Jax. It's her choice. She goes into it. She knows the warnings that she's received from her parents or just like people in society, like you don't make a deal with the fate, otherwise you're gonna suffer consequences. She was brokenhearted. She does it anyways, okay? So like I don't mind that because she's willingly put herself in this position, and so since she has to fulfill her end of the bargain, right? But it was all her decision. And so whatever terrible things that Jax makes her do, it's by her choice, or like she initially chose to do this, right? So she has some agency in the story, and this one there's less of that. Like she is reluctant to work with him, and he's just constantly tracking her down and just basically forcing her to do this work that she actually doesn't want to do. So I just don't like it because she has no agency and just she feels powerless, but she still has feelings for Jack. And the thing that bothers me is like I like hate to love romances when the dynamic isn't like that. I like the dynamic to be a little bit more equal, and even though like maybe they hate each other, I like to see people like succumb to their feelings and submit to the other person. Like that's what kind of makes it good, is like, you know, even though they're having this frustrated feelings, their love or their like how they feel about the other person usually overpowers that. And so the fact that he is constantly like forcing her to do something and never doing anything that she wants and desires bothers me. I don't like that dynamic as much, and I don't know, like I really, really hope she like gets to the point where she's so frustrated that like she just kind of lashes out at him, because like I would be so mad. Like I would not be happy about this situation, and he's not like listening to her or like doing anything that she desires. His excuse is always like, you know who I am, like I'm not human, I don't have human emotions kind of thing. And like I don't think that's a good enough excuse, because in my opinion it's like, but you know that she's human and you know like how she's feeling and she's telling you, and you just refuse to do anything about it. Like you're just like, oh, whatever, you're human, I'm not. It just feels like a lazy excuse. So like here's the thing, do we actually know that he likes her? We don't know. We assume that maybe he does, and we're kind of like hoping that he does, but maybe he doesn't actually like her at all. And it's almost forcing me to think that way. But the way it's written is like she's falling for him, and like she likes him and can't help but have these butterfly feelings. So I'm just like am getting a little frustrated, and like I need to be given something to make him at least a little bit redeemable, right? And right now he's not redeemable. Like the fact that he forced her to do this, she's not begrudgingly doing it anymore, which I would be. Like it doesn't quite fit for me. So that's how I'm feeling. The other thing too is like whenever there's scenes with Jax, the way the author describes him, obviously if you're a young adult reader you'd be swooning and stuff, and sometimes I'm a little bit like rolling my eyes a little bit. It's a little cheesy, not too bad, but I can't help but feel that way. It is still a lot of fun. I'm still really enjoying it, but I do want the dynamic to be a little bit more push and pull, and right now it just feels a lot of push on one end. So I hope she like get some gumption. She was very gumptious in the beginning, but then they like forced her hand, and I don't like that. Like, I want him to be weak. Like, that's what Hate to Love is great for, is when the hero becomes weak for the heroine. And he's not doing that right now. And she caught him with another girl, and it's like really unclear of like, you know, was he just like having a little tryst with her, or was he gonna kill her? Because like his kiss kills people supposedly, except for his true love. I wasn't really sure what that was about, but they're looking for their stones. They're currently at a party. I do like it, but like, I'm frustrated. It better fix these issues, or it won't be a 5. And I think that's what I realized. For book 1, it's still 4.5, and I realized this because of those kind of like descriptions of Jax and how he's so like gorgeous, and it just, I don't know, it reads cheesy, which is funny because like I read a lot of romance. So I don't know why this feels cheesy. I think I just don't like the word swagger when it comes to someone's walk. Anyways. Hi, so I finished the Ballad of Never After last night, and I have some thoughts. I did really like this. It was still a lot of fun. Like, my feelings are still like 5 stars. I still really enjoyed it. It was a lot of fun, but I do have some issues. I did talk a lot about the relationship last time, but I was getting a little annoyed by Evangeline. It's a lot of like, I can't be with him, but I can't resist him kind of dynamic. And so that would get tedious and frustrating. There was less push and pull, I guess you can say, like him kind of succumbing to his own desires, which kind of left me like questioning, like, does he even like her kind of thing. And there was some of it is a little like on borderline like cheesy, because there'd be scenes where like she's in a room by herself and she's doing something, and then he's like in the doorway and he says like a flirty line and she like spins around in surprise. I swear that happened like 5 times in this book. It's a lot. Like, it's a little too much. There were some like good romantic moments for sure, and I had a lot of fun. There was a bit of a mystery. They had to find some stuff in order to open the arch. That was good. That kind of happened really quickly, but it was almost like better that way, so it wasn't like this huge MacGuffin that kind of kept them wandering everywhere. The focus was very much on this relationship. It's kind of a love triangle because, you know, she's technically married while this is happening, even though it doesn't even feel like a real marriage because it didn't happen. Like, he was in a curse like the minute they were married, basically. So the thing that I was starting to struggle with was like the ending. It wasn't my favorite. Like it's fine. Like, I still really like this book. I don't know. There were some reveals that I was like, really? That's the reveal? Like, the reason why behind this? It was almost hinting like it was going to be like a revenge plot or something, but it wasn't that. It ended up being something completely different. And then at first I'm like, well, maybe this would be kind of interesting based on the information they provided. And then it didn't go that way. Like, I was kind of anticipating a totally different kind of plot for book 3, and I was kind of getting excited about it. And then that didn't happen. But there was kind of like a big twist at the end, and I kind of liked it. Like, you know, since I wasn't going to get what I wanted, it ended up going a different direction, which I'm intrigued by. So I think I have to give this 4 stars, even though this is like a lot of fun and I really enjoyed it, and like sometimes in my heart it feels like a 5. I still had too many like issues, I guess you can say, and there's some things that just like aren't overly explained. They're kind of hinting that Jack was human at some point and then became a Fae, but like that's never really explained. And I would like more information about that, I guess. So I think I have to go give it 4 stars in the end. I am gonna talk spoilers for this because I kind of have to, because like I'm just overwhelmed, I guess. So I'm gonna go in spoiler territory, specifically like about the ending. So if you don't want to be spoiled for this book, leave right now. But the thing I wanted to say for spoilers, was, okay, so we find out that Jax wants to go back in time. Like, that's how he's gonna use the stones, is to go back in time to meet up with that Empress girl, or Dianella or something. Anyways, like his one true love. I feel like that stuff wasn't overly explained, not necessarily like that he wants to go back, but I feel like the exploration of his one true love, I didn't really understand it because it just wasn't explored enough. They talked about his one true love, or this girl being his one true love, because when he kissed her, she didn't die, and that she moved on and like fell in love with someone else or something like that. I kind of assumed that she wasn't actually his one true love, because like he's falling for Evangeline, and so his whole reason to get these stones was just to go back in time. I just assumed the motive for the stones was like bigger. Like, I assumed it was like a revenge plot, because they explore this whole backstory about him and the Merry Men, I think they were called, or the Merrywood 3 or whatever, like the people in his life from the past when he was human who got killed. Like, I kind of assumed it was going to be like a revenge plot kind of thing. But it ended up just being to go back in time in order to try again with this girl who's supposedly his one true love, because when he kissed her, she didn't die. And I was like really disappointed, but then I thought like, okay, maybe this could work, because if he goes back in time, like I was kind of picturing like a third book where like we're kind of like reliving the events, or like a different story or a different version where Jax is like not in Evangeline's life, but somehow they still meet again, and you know, he tries with this other girl but it's not working out and he still has feelings for her. Like, I thought that would have been like super cool and a lot of fun and really, really good, and that he would have to really woo her kind of thing. But no, that's not what it is. And so instead, like when she dies at the end because Chaos like kills her, he goes back in order to save her. So I'm like, okay, like maybe they can finally be together kind of thing. Well, he brings her back to life, like this alternate, he goes back in time to save her, to make sure she doesn't get eaten by Chaos, but he like hurts her so they can't be together. Like, he hurts her, breaks her heart, saves her life, but like she doesn't realize that, she doesn't know that this is an alternative world, and she goes and cries. Apollo is back to his normal self, and then he steals her memories of like everything, which was like insane. It was like kind of like a rough scene to read, because like taking advantage is the wrong word, but like stealing her memories, and she was like fighting him tooth and nail to try to keep the memories. But so she's left with not remembering anything, nothing about Jax, not even about like meeting him. Like she doesn't remember any of that. So I thought that was really interesting. So I am excited for book 3. I liked Apollo, but it's interesting to see him a little bit villainous and stuff. So in the end, I'm giving this 4 stars. Am I like super excited to read book 3? Yes and no. Like, this series is way different than I thought it was. Like, I had no idea it was very like fairy tale-esque. I do like that. That's part of my favorite thing of this series, is the fairy tale environment. I really like that. The relationship is fun. This is very much like a soap opera, like so dramatic. And I feel like she has like endless possibilities for like love interest, like which is fun. Like, so if you like soap operas, if you like dramatics in your fantasy romance, then you probably like the series. So as of right now, it's like a 4.5 4-star series for me. Really good, really solid, a lot of fun. So this ended up being 4.5, this ended up being 4 stars. And that's it for this video. I hope you guys really enjoyed it. I'd love to know if you've read this series before. If you have, comment down below. Love to know your thoughts and opinions about them. If you have any book recommendations for me, if you want to see any specific reading vlogs, please comment down below. Love to know your thoughts and opinions. Thank you so much for watching. And you know what? I want you to keep reading. Bye.